Hello, I am Natalia Wojtkowiak and you are listening to the Manage the Problem podcast. I'm creating this place for owners and decision makers of small and medium-sized manufacturing companies. In this podcast, I talk openly and specifically about the problems of the production industry. I explain complex issues related to production management in simple language. I advise how to create optimized processes and effective teams. This is podcast created by practitioner for practitioners. So if you are looking for a knowledge, inspiration in a field of effective and efficient production and team management, you are in the right place. Welcome. I hope you are ready. Manage the problem. When you think engineer, do terms such as technical knowledge, calculations, design come to mind, yeah? And if I ask you to describe the competencies of seller in 3 words, would you mention openness, communicativeness, persuasion? Note that example job position of salesperson is often associated with soft competencies and the work of engineer with hard competencies. But it is always right? In today's episode, I want to consider how important soft skills are in your engineering and specialist team and what they can give your company and production. Let's start. Manage the problem. Creativity, communication, persuasion. These are just 3 skills from a long list of soft skills that engineers use in their work every day. These skills aren't often at all developed by engineers during their studies. Unlikely calculation, knowledge of design tools or use of machines, manufacturing or chemical processes. And I think you will agree with me that graduates learn these skills on the job, often for years, sometimes painfully. The consequences of this is slower career development, but also losses for companies. Engineers and specialists in production companies are a link between a manager's vision and the everyday work needs of processes. And often they are a creator of the new concepts or solutions. In each of these situations, she should be able to communicate clearly, be able to simply explain her idea or describe the problem, but also be able to defend her opinion, as well as give a space for discussion and other opinions. Have you noticed that this is often missing? Maybe the lack of this basic communication and cooperation skills is one of the reasons why the production work environment is considered specific and sometimes even toxic. You have to be aware that engineers in your company, in your team, are responsible for a given line or production area. They cooperate with other departments and other employees whose expectations aren't always concurrent. They are in the middle of the information network in your company's environment. It's the ability to talk, provide information and receive feedback, and work in a team perceived as something less important? Why? Can someone explain this to me? No matter whether I work as process engineer or implementation project leader at home or abroad, in famous companies or small productions, my soft skills and personality were always as important as my knowledge, experience and technical skills for project success and smooth cooperation. I am sure it was so, that it was equivalent. This daily contact and building relations with every level in company allow me push through certain ideas but also find new ones. This speaking the language of managers and use language of operators benefits made it easier for me to implement difficult changes. Thanks to the ability to clearly explain problems and use metaphors combined with numbers, I am able to present my ideas and convince colleagues and managers from other departments to accept them. I am absolutely not saying that it's always easy and pleasant. However, the hand of these skills by me and my colleagues allows us to achieve goals more easy and get promoted faster than people who don't learn it, don't train these skills and focus only on hard competence at work. In theory, everything looks great, as always. But how to make it work effectively in production? How to apply all these skills in everyday work? It would seem that the answer is simple. However, it isn't so simple if your company and your production face problems such as frequent and heated conflicts, lack of cooperation and exchange between departments, or even acting against it, strong resistance to change, even sabotage, lack of safety space to discuss new ideas. Well, what can you do to change this? First step, get ready. You are engineer or manager. If you want to implement a new tool or processes in production, note that this is often a new responsibility for operator or leader and requires new commitment, learning, and abounding routine. It is kind of effort for them, and denying this effort and putting pressure on it will not help. But this effort must be followed by reward, value. This reward may be to make his/her work easier or faster, and this argument, it is the language of benefit that I recommend speaking to everyone affected by change. I will give you an example from my work. I implemented a project on production line that was famous of failures. When the failure was removed, the issue went quick until the next stop, which didn't take long. I proposed and I implemented troubleshooting there. This is a place where, after repairing a failure, person who repaired it entered the causes and solution. Of course, at the beginning there was opposition and grumbling. People said it is another obligation, they don't have a time for it, they don't need it. I prepared to refute this argument and explain that A. Documenting breakdowns and repairing them will allow for short failures. B. Short failures or prefable, their absence translate into efficiency. C. The production efficiency result translate into operators' benefits. D. Writing down solutions is consolidating knowledge and transferring knowledge is element of teamwork. E. The most common failures can be implemented as a part of standard onboarding training so that the new employee has this knowledge from the beginning and it's not alone with a problem. It is in everyone's interest that the new person doesn't delay or spoil the work. It worked. Troubleshooting caught on, operators started using it, and the number of failures dropped by 37% in 3 months. I think it's a good result. Second step. Speak the other person's language. The language we choose is like a clothes we wear, appropriate the occasion, and in work life appropriate the person we are talking to. At this point, it doesn't mean that you should talk the plant manager using a pompous phrase and with operator using slang. No, what I mean is that you choose the right arguments and images. Consider whether the operator will be convinced by the fact that if we maintain OEE at 87% by the end of the year, we will produce 6,000 units of the product and earn 5 million euros. But will he see this money in his account? No. Are these goals important to him? No. But the fact that statistically OEE below 87% means 5 hours of failures per week, which affect whether he receives a monthly bonus of 0 or 200 euros, has changed his perspective on this goal. First step. Putting on the slippers of understanding. This is a tip that I have been using for a long time and it very often saves me from making a mistake. This requires getting out of your shoes, putting on slippers of understanding, seeing the situation from different perspective, trying to understand the other side attitude, seeing what goals guided them and whether we can do something together. As little critical assessment and escalation of your own emotions as possible. I admit that it's something very difficult, sometimes even impossible to do. However, thanks to this method, I established good contact with the people who were very opposite to me at the beginning of our cooperation. Step 4. Practice. I know that you have a lot of knowledge in engineering topics and you have a more and more experience every day. You train in this for 5 years of study and now you have been working in the industry every day for several years. So now focus on skills that will make your work easier, show off your result, perhaps gain important information during the conversation or defend your opinion. And yes, at the beginning is strange and somehow difficult and uncomfortable, but with each presentation of your ideas, after long conversations with colleagues, and maybe even after an intellectual battle with the colleague from another department, you will feel that you have made progress and the communication is easier for you. Today, ending this topic, I would like you to be left with a thought that best technical educated engineer or manager will not run production and people if he or she isn't able to talk to them, get to know them, help them, because there is no knowledge in any ISO standard of how to do it well and effectively. I invite you to listen to the next episode of Manage the Problem podcast. I will also be grateful for feedback, positive comments, and sharing this material with others in our industry. I want this podcast to be a value and interesting time for you. You can find me on LinkedIn and you can hear me, the Manage the Problem podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Manage the Problem, Natalia Wojtkowiak.